the e-archery version, basically of the jig looks like this, except has like a 5-bolt magazine, or you can adjust it for a 7-bolt magazine. Basically, you can just basically do this, and you could just have another shot, and that's called the Cobra Adder.
Got it. Wow. All right, I'm definitely giving you a call, man, when it's time to switch to crossbow.
The different versions now, that's the more powerful repeating crossbow. Those type of crossbows are made for self-defense a lot of times. There's the ones they're fast and just powerful. You can get like 90 pound, 80 pounds are pretty good. With bows and arrows and crossbows, the one thing that's really interesting about this is that 20 pounds per pressure on a regular, let's say, a bow, you know what I mean, can literally take down a deer. Take down a deer as just as lethally as basically like a rifle, like a scope rifle, like carbine, like a hunting rifle. But that's so it's very interesting with the arrows and how different they are and how they kill,
Yeah.
They don't do the same thing as a bullet. So a lot of times you don't need the high pressure velocity a lot of times. So with crossbows, 130 pounds will kill you. 80 pounds, 90 pounds will kill you. No, man.
Yeah. Yeah, Sven. Imagine if you have a broadhead, it makes it even easier.
Oh yeah, and there are different types you can get.
Right.
I prefer the solid. I'll show some of the heads I use for my crossbow. You can actually, the best thing about the modern arrows is that they're interchangeable. Now a lot of people will use these razor heads that you can't reuse. You know what I mean? At all. I decided to go in a different direction when it comes to a hunting broadhead. Solid steel, still sharp as a razor.
Yeah, 3 or 4 blades.
It's just 3-edged.
3-edge.
This is a good hunting one. But at the same time, I also have something more for combat. I mean, that's for hunting. This one would be more for combat. I like to call this a bodkin. I bought these on Amazon, but they say these for hunting, but these look exactly like the bodkin tips, if you can say, that medieval archers used. These were the original armor-piercing rounds.
Wow.
Solid steel. I like the solid steel versions.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. Archery has been around for so long, so much longer than firearms and definitely air guns. So there's a lot more science probably behind it.
True. So have slingshots.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Do you have any questions for me or?
Yeah, no. I've been following. I really like what you do and how broad your experience. It's funny because you have so much experience in so many different weapons, so many different types of weapons. And while I just started exactly 1 year ago, I never touched. I mean, the only guns that I've touched were squirt water guns in my past. And then just in this 1 year, this whole new world opened up for me.
Mm-hmm.
So
I can explain that. I come from a rougher background probably than you do. You know what I mean? I come from like a white working class kind of background. I lived in bad neighborhoods. I've lived in the backwoods as well, hunting, fishing. Basically, I come from a family with a warrior kind of thing, warrior kind of bloodline, you could say. And I guess that's the reason why I'm into different kinds of tools for defense and hunting, because it's I was raised in that backwoods hunting background. I've been in bad neighborhoods. I've been in different environments. I love the backwoods the most because it's the most peaceful. But I've been in like some of the worst trailer parks you can imagine, some of the worst neighborhoods.
Yeah.
I've been there, so I know and I've experienced at an early age, like like a violent. Well, I witnessed a violent attack at an early age in my own home, so that's the reason why I'm always want to be prepared for any situation.
I absolutely agree, man, and it's the need that brings you to it. I grew up, I was born and raised in Italy, and in Italy there is absolutely no weapons for anybody other than the mafia and the police. So the mafia kind of they use the weapons against each other, and the police uses them against the mafia. So the general public just is completely left out of the weaponry world. So again, being born and raised in Italy, I never ever been around any of that. However, I'm also half American, so I would come to the U.S. every summer and work with my cousins and stuff. And here is a completely different world. They lived, like you just said, some were out in the boonies, some lived in very difficult neighborhoods. And so here, I did see that there is indeed the need of having, means of defense.
It's
So
the type
exactly,
of society and environment. See,
exactly, absolutely.
it is like that. I mean, I've actually lived this. I've actually seen it, and a lot of people from the countries, like more peaceful countries, they don't understand what it's like. I mean, I've been fighting since I was a child, so I know what that's like. Hand to
Yeah.
hand, I took martial arts for several years. I street, I fought on the streets. I fought, I know what savagery looks like, and I know what different levels of violence looks like.
Yeah.
I've been
No,
stabbed.
oh wow. Tell me about that story if you want.
Oh, I was a teenager in a trailer park. um, Basically, a guy said I didn't have the balls to put a pair of scissors through his hand. Um, but he didn't know me very well. That's a challenge in that type of neighborhood. You don't back down from. First rule you learn when you live in a bad neighborhood: never back down from a challenge. No, man. So I drove that pair of scissors right through his hand and put a nice hole in it. Put a nice hole through to the table too. And there was a fight, and basically, the guy got like a tin broomstick handle, those cheap tin broomstick handles, and I got the pair of scissors again. I was going to kill this guy, oh man, and he speared me in the chest right here.
Wow.
He
How deep
speared me
did
in
it
the
go?
chest right here. It didn't go too deep, thank God. It was win the peck. You know what I mean? It's hard to see on camera,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was like a round wound.
Hard to see, but hell of a story to tell. I on the other hand, another reason why I stayed away from weapons for so long, and also a reason why I kind of have I'm waiting to combine my identity to what I'm doing now is because I spent the last 20 years in conflict zones, reporting on. I started in my early 20s. I went to Asia basically, and on a backpacking trip,
Yeah.
and never came back. I came back 12 years later,
Uh-huh.
and in those 12 years, in my first backpacking trip, basically, I stumbled onto a refugee camp, and that led me into wanting to tell stories about conflict and horrible situations. So I started off in Burma, Cambodia, and moved down towards Indonesia. But the whole point is that for so many years, I covered and I did documentaries and told stories about the effects of weapons on And like I would go to entire villages where people completely had no limbs because it was the whole area was full of landmines
And, yeah.
and whatnot. So for me, weapons were an actual horrible thing. I always thought they were a horrible thing, and I always had this camera, and I thought the camera was my weapon to tell these stories. But then again, coming here in the States really changed me. Moving here a few years ago, being a journalist here and covering stories, like you said, the certain just the daily stories of violence that happen here, of just senseless violence, made me completely change my mind. And I was like, oh shit, you really do need serious protection here, especially where you live here. And my mindset completely changed. And so now I'm trying to slowly adjust also the mindset of those around me who are going to be like, wait a second, 1 second ago you were doing these peace missions around the world, and now you're doing videos about guns. But
Well,
again,
if you really want to tell them a story, I'll tell you mine. That started it all. I was 3 years old. My father was in the house, and he was cooking food for me and my brothers. At least the ones old enough to eat solid foods. My youngest brother was a baby. A guy came into the house. Oh, based on for some because he believed some stupid stuff about my dad. And there was a fight that ensued. This guy was big. He was strong. He was stronger and bigger than my father. Okay. But my dad put up one hell of a fight. Okay. And so what happened was my dad fought well, but he couldn't win against this guy. He was too big. He was too strong. And I know 3 years old is pretty young to remember this, but it's trauma. You know what I mean? I watched my father get beaten with an inch of his life. And I guess subconsciously I said that was never going to happen to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, watching your father go out on the stretcher was not something a child never needs to see. And
no, I mean, I'm sorry that happened to you, and I mean, having a 2-year-old daughter, that just gives me goosebumps. Just listening to your story. It's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, it is terrifying, and it's never really left me. The guy looked like a biker. He was a white guy. He had a beard. Man, brawny dude. And I realized the need for having the means of self-defense and being able to defend yourself. So I took martial arts. I started in the later years. I started weightlifting.
Look at that! Look at those puppies.
Because the thing is, I don't have big arms because I'm trying to attract girls. A lot of times it's saying try it and you're done. No, because I lived in bad neighborhoods. That's the reason why.
Yeah.
Because big arms say, don't mess with that guy.
That's absolutely 100%. I agree with you.
So part of basically being aware when it comes to being having a home defense plan, I use different things about home defense. Now, I once read a story years ago about an Australian family, who, because of the father of the home, made a serious tactical blunder. It got him and his family killed. I don't need to go into details of what happened. Let's just put it this way. Half the family was killed, and the one who survived, the child killed himself.
Of course.
It was basically like this. It was a home invasion in Australia. You don't have a lot of guns. He had guns, but the law said you had to keep him in a safe. And I learned something from that. This guy, what he did was the biggest mistake he could make. He ran in the dark to the living room, not knowing what he was up against. And he got beaten to death with sticks.
As he was trying to get to the safe.
Well, I don't know. he did something stupid.
Mm.
The thing he should have had was other alternative weapons around that he had in hidden spots that he could use. And the second mistake he made was not stopping, listening to the footsteps and the voices of the people that just broke in. He should have had dogs. You know what I mean? Dogs will alert you ahead of time to any kind of intruder. You could say he should have had alarm systems. He could have had a camera. But he was in rural Australia. He thought there was no threat out in the middle of nowhere. I guess he was wrong. Now, these things don't happen often, but when they do, they're devastating.
Yeah.
You know? So I would say always have a home defense plan.
Yeah.
You know?
Very much. And if you watch Netflix nowadays, that's what got me. Netflix is pulling out all these. I love it in a way. How they're really digging into all these old crimes that unsolved, some solved, some unsolved, but there's all these old crimes that happened back in the day, and it's scary stuff, man. These serial killers and the sheer number of these cases.
To be honest with you, serial killers are very rare. They're rare as they don't happen as often. You know what I mean? But home invasions, they can happen more often than, let's say, a serial killer.
Yeah.
And that's all.
Absolutely.
And what happened here was what you would call a home invasion. Some very sick guys. I'm not going to say what they looked like because that would be politically incorrect. Came in there and just wiped out an entire family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was the father's fault. The father made serious tactical errors.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't ready.
Yeah.
He did not think about it. It's common. You don't need to be in the military, nothing. I'm not in the military.